So what is one of your favorite fiction and nonfiction books, and why?
I think fiction book that I've read recently was Frankenstein. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It moderately haunted me in a good way and made me think deeply. And so at this stage, that's my answer. It might shift. I guess nonfiction, I think one of my favorite, it would be in the apologetics lane, is I really enjoyed The Privileged Planet. In part because it shifted the way I look at certain things, like a solar eclipse and things in nature. I think it's a powerful argument not only that the world is designed, but that there's purpose built in the world to make scientific discoveries. That's always been one of my favorites.
Favorite fiction book is pretty easy, Till We Have Faces by C.S. Lewis. Maybe because it's set in like a pagan culture, that's why it didn't take off as much as some of his other books. But to me, it's up there with like Lord of the Rings, even though it's significantly shorter. But a phenomenal book dealing with the problem of suffering and so on. Just awesome stuff. I don't think I could just name my favorite nonfiction book. I do like lots of apologetics books. I like lots of philosophy books over the years. That one a little more difficult. But as far as fiction, that hands down, Till We Have Faces. Love it.
Good one. Well, let's have a non-fiction. I think my favorite actually is kind of a memoir called The Severe Mercy. We were actually chatting about it last night. So it kind of retells the journey of one guy becoming a Christian from a life of actual antagonism towards Christianity, but a lot of pain along the way and trying to wrestle with what's going on in his world. That's beautiful. Gives me nostalgic vibes about England and ancient cultures again. It's amazing. A fiction book that I really like is an author called N.D. Wilson. He's an American literature buff and he's got a series of 3 books that he's written as children's literature, kind of like a new Narnia, you could put it that way. He thinks of himself along those lines, that I really love.
So I would say, not to sound too fancy here, but I love Dostoevsky. And now a lot of people will talk about the brothers Karamazov. I love The Idiot, right? Okay. Which is a beautiful work of fiction where it kind of gives a kind of Christ figure in the main character. And I read it in college, and I've read it again actually recently, and so that's kind of my favorite. Nonfiction, I don't know if I have a favorite. I think one of the books that was most meaningful to me in my journey was J.P. Moreland's Love Your God With All Your Mind. I may be messing that up a little bit, but it's something like that. That came at a time where I was just sort of searching for what direction do I go and what's God got for me in my life and my calling. And I got to meet J.P., and it was right when that book had come out, and so I read that. It was just like, okay, I am pursuing the life of the mind. I don't know what it's going to look like for a career, but it set me on a trajectory to do what I do today.
I think my favorite fiction book is Dostoevsky's The Idiot.
Oh,
sorry, that sounds so
the
bougie
second person
for me to
to
say.
say that.
Am I?
Yes.
Wow,
Yeah.
I'm amazed. Well, The Idiot, it's astonishing. I mean, Dostoevsky's Dostoevsky, but it raises the question, like, if you're going to portray Christ in a narrative, how do you do it? And it's just so interesting. Dostoevsky has this tendency to introduce prostitutes whenever he wants to kind of introduce the theme of grace. And the Christ figure is this awkward figure who doesn't quite fit in the world around him. And it's a wonderful job. Like, how do you bring someone who's living in a different economy and just reveal that? And so I love that. I love that book. In terms of nonfiction, the book I've probably gone back to the most is Augustine's Confessions. Wow. And there's just something about the narrative of his life. And I think how he kind of, as a Christian now, is looking back on his life and asking the question, Lord, what were you doing here? Lord, where were you here? And kind of sanctifying his memory and discovering God in his life even before he was a Christian, and God was already at work. That is just such a profound narrative.
Yeah, so I don't read too much fiction, just because I have ADHD, so reading in general is a challenge for me. So audiobooks has been a huge lifesaver for me. I'd say one of the most I've enjoyed was World War Z. Oh. So I'm fascinated with the idea of zombies. Now, when I started studying the soul and I came to the realization that it was metaphysically impossible for zombies to be a thing, I was like, oh, well, that kind of sucks, but kind of doesn't. Either way, it was a really interesting read, this kind of apocalyptic in the world, and then you got zombies. Very fascinating. In the book, it's something like, how do you fight an enemy that doesn't get tired and doesn't sleep when you need both of those things? Wow. So very interesting. As far as nonfiction, one of my favorite is, if I had to just pick one on an island, J.P. Moreland's Loving God With All Your Mind. It's convicting, encouraging, upsetting, all of the above, all into mine. So
I'll put that one on my list.
Oh, it's so good.
Well, I got a lot of favorite fiction books, but particular to what we're talking about here, I would say a surprising one. People want to say Lord of the Rings. People want to say, all of Lewis's fiction books and all, and they're great.
Yeah.
I will say though that there's one, and it's pretty rough, and there's some rough language and some rough stuff going through it. It got made into an excellent movie. It's called A Simple Plan by Scott Williams. And A Simple Plan is the story of these two brothers who are walking through this deeply snowed forest, and they come across a plane that has $4 million in it. And their simple plan was, we'll keep this money until the thaw, and if anybody comes looking for it, we'll turn it in. But if no one comes looking for it, we'll split the money up and live our lives. And this simple plan turns into this thing where sin creeps in. And what the theme of the book is otherwise good people can be easily corrupted. And I think that actually speaks to, it's a secular book. It's got nothing to do with the Bible, except that it actually goes to that eternal contemporary issue where it talks about the sin nature of human beings, how easily corrupted we all are. And we need someone who's not us to save us from us. That's one of my favorite fiction books. My very favorite nonfiction book, this is a no-brainer. It's actually The Cross of Christ by John Stott.
Oh, great book.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And one of the reasons why it's my favorite is because when I was a Muslim, I often struggled with Christians saying, well, the cross satisfies God's mercy and God's justice. And I was like, no, it doesn't, because Jesus paid the price that I deserve to pay. That's the exact epitome of non-justice or injustice. And John Stott does a great job of talking through what really happened on the cross. And so all the books on the atonement that followed John Stott are like footnotes to John Stott.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.